Hello everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time today for this short tutorial about documenting detailed damage assessment during intake in RC care. My name is Kelly Farrell and I'm a disaster program specialist in Eastern North Carolina, supporting the National Response Team as they issue this additional guidance. The purpose of this presentation is to review the steps for entering detailed damage assessment during the client intake process within RC care. We will walk through 3 common scenarios today when confirming damage and explain when to list 0, 1, or 2 responders visually confirming damage. When you've completed this video, we really hope that you feel more confident in understanding the program eligibility section of the intake process. You'll notice that this presentation is a PowerPoint. It includes some screenshots and it was put together fairly quickly. The goal, of course, is just to help support you all in the rollout of RC care. Things are continually being changed, bugs are being fixed, and things are continuing to be improved. So I hope you'll forgive any inconsistencies or anything that might be slightly different for you now. As I mentioned, we'll walk through several scenarios. The first scenario being if 2 responders are on scene visually confirming the damage, as we would prior to COVID. The second scenario would be 2 responders visually confirming the damage using information obtained from DAT duty officers or emergency officials. It could also be a combination where maybe one responder is on scene visually confirming the damage and the other received the information from the DAT duty officer or the emergency official. It could also be if you had a 911 notification system that went out to a distribution list in your DAT area, and multiple people received the same communication from the duty officer or the emergency official. Scenario 3 will be if one responder visually confirms the damage using information from the DAT duty officer or the emergency official, or being on scene. And lastly, we'll talk about when you would enter 0 responders visually confirming the damage. This would mean that the damage assessment was missing and the client would not be eligible for immediate financial assistance. However, individual disaster care funds can still be provided without that damage assessment complete. First, we'll talk through scenarios 1 and 2 together because in this case, 2 responders are confirming the damage. Again, that could be any of these scenarios below, where maybe both responders are on scene, both responders received the information directly from the duty officer or emergency official. Both responders saw the damage either via live video chat or driving by the scene or any combination thereof. And in that scenario, the intake worker completing the intake form would select 2 responders visually confirming damage. The first responder will select the damage in the dropdown and select Approve. The first responder will also open the Add Notes field, and they will complete the point of contact information for the second responder. In the Notes section, they would explain how the damage was confirmed, either in person, via video chat, driving by the scene, etc. The second responder can then go into My Actions after the case is opened and confirm the DDA, or they can give their token that was sent to the second responder to that intake worker who is completing the intake form, and the first responder can then confirm using the token and select Approve. We'll talk about what that looks like in the system. So again, when you get to that program eligibility section of the intake process, this box will pop up and it will say, please provide the number of responders confirming damage and client information for the case. This may be done in person or virtually. So again, these first 2 scenarios, 1 and 2, are that 2 responders are confirming the damage. That second box, number of responders meeting with the client, that could be 1 or 2. It could be that one of the responders did the intake entirely and they were the one person interacting with the client, or both could have interacted with the client. Because I selected 2 in the first box, that box down at the bottom saying second responder, volunteer connection number, or email, I entered the email address for my second responder. This is what will trigger the token to be sent. And again, let's assume that I did the ID confirmation and address confirmation, and I will hit approve for both of those as well. In the damage confirmation section, I'm going to select major, and I will hit the button add notes, which will create a pop-up box. In that pop-up box, because 2 responders visually confirmed the damage, I will again enter the contact information for my second responder, and I will document in the add notes section how the damage was confirmed. So again, that could be that the damage was confirmed by 2 Red Cross responders on scene, or damage was confirmed by Durham 911 dispatch distribution to both responders. And I can include the dispatcher's information, or damage was confirmed by Liz Mays on scene and Kelly Farrell via Durham FD Chief Brown. So again, it could be any combination thereof where both responders received either the information directly from an emergency official or were visually confirming it on scene or via live video chat. Next, it is very important to hit approve for all of the sections: ID, address confirmation, and damage confirmation. This step is critical so that the case does not get held up and we're able to provide immediate financial assistance. I will note that they did just add a section in My Actions where if you missed any of those confirmations or approvals, you can log into My Actions and find any of those ID, address, or damage approvals pending your approval. So it is good best practice after you have interacted with a case to make sure that none of that is pending your approval. As I mentioned, that second responder may have been issued a token. If they provide that back to the first responder doing the intake, that first responder can enter the security token here, or the second responder can log in to RC Care Intake and select My Actions to provide the approvals. You'll notice that because I hit approve for each of the buttons, they're now grayed out and the word now says approved. And again, if you forgot to hit approve and realize that the case is now unable to move forward, you have the option to go into My Actions in the home page, and any of the pending confirmations, including ID, address, or damage classification, will be listed so that you can approve them yourself. Next, we'll talk about the third scenario when one responder is confirming the damage. So one responder would have visually seen the damage, either being on scene, driving by the impacted residence, live video chatting with the client, or receiving the information directly from the duty officer or emergency official. We would select 1 for number of responders visually confirming damage. We would select the appropriate damage classification and hit approve. And if the responder completing the intake is not the responder who visually confirmed the damage, the intake worker should add notes about how damage was verified and enter the second responder's information in the point of contact field. If the responder completing intake is the same person who visually verified the damage, we would add notes about how damage was verified, but leave the point of contact field blank. The note should contain the emergency official's agency, badge number, name, and contact information, or the duty officer's name and phone number. The client is now approved for immediate assistance if the damage is destroyed, major, or uninhabitable. Event review is required to provide any supplemental assistance. So again, in looking at the system, if we went to the program eligibility section, we would have the option to select number of responders able to visually confirm the damage as 1. And once again, we can choose either 1 or 2 as the number of responders meeting with the client. Because I had 2 responders meeting with the client, it still asked me for the second responder's volunteer connection number or email. If the first responder is doing intake and the second responder is the one confirming the damage, we would add notes explaining how the damage was confirmed and enter the second responder's information in the point of contact field. So in this case, Kelly, the intake worker, did not visually verify the damage. Liz Mays did. So I would put Liz's information in the point of contact field, and I would document in the notes section how Liz visually confirmed the damage. And that could again be via video chat, being on scene, driving by the scene, or receiving the information directly from the duty officer or emergency official. If the first responder doing intake is the same responder who is confirming the damage, leave point of contact field blank and add notes about how damage was confirmed. So in this scenario, I, Kelly Farrell, received the damage classification directly from the duty officer or from the emergency official. It could also be that I was on scene, but again, this is just how we would want to document if we received it directly from an emergency official. We would document their name, agency, badge number if available, and phone number, and why, in this case, if we were determining it uninhabitable, why was it uninhabitable? Lastly, we'll talk about the scenario where we would enter 0 responders confirming damage. If detailed damage assessment is not available at the time of intake, you must indicate a 0. This results in the case going to the regional event administrator for a manual DA override before immediate financial assistance can be issued. This will delay immediate financial assistance. However, we might open a case without detailed damage assessment and not provide immediate assistance so that we could provide individual disaster care. And that could include funds through individual disaster care to the client. As you can see, we would still select number of responders able to visually confirm damage as 0. And lastly, a few best practices and important reminders that have come up in the last few days as we have rolled out with RC Care. Obtaining and confirming the detailed damage assessment with both responders before contacting the client can ensure that there's no delay. You must select Approve after choosing the damage in the dropdown for the system to recognize your selection. If you do not select Approve, then the case will appear to have no damage assessment and it will not allow for immediate financial assistance to be provided. You can use the Add Notes field to detail how the damage was confirmed. This is where you would document emergency officials or duty officers' information. Use the point of contact field for entering the email or volunteer connection number of the responder who confirmed the detailed damage assessment. If you forgot to hit Approve and realize the case is now unable to move forward, you now have the option to go into My Actions on the RC Care homepage, and any pending confirmations, including the ID, address, or damage classification confirmations, will now be listed so that you can approve them yourself. Thank you so much for taking the time to view this short tutorial. This training incorporated a lot of information from the doctrine listed here on the screen. If you need access to any of these, they are all part of the RC Care Toolkit. Thank you so much, and I hope you feel more confident in filling out the program eligibility section of the RC Care intake process.